Hey Adni fam, it is Anthony. I am so excited to be joined today by Mohamed Basha, who is the founder and CEO of TLC Nursing. And Mohamed, you are a nurse yourself, which I think is so amazing. And I love seeing healthcare workers building companies for healthcare workers. I think it's very inspiring. So thank you so much for being on the Adni podcast today.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. Would love to know more about your story as a nurse myself, as a nurse turned like entrepreneur. I think your story in particular really stood out to me. So, would love if you could just share a little bit about your background, why you went into nursing, and then kind of how you ended up where you are today.
Sure. So it's a little bit long story, so I'm going to try to shorten it as much as possible. So I grew up in Vermont. Growing up, I always wanted to be in computer science and engineering and things like that. So I started out in computer engineering in college. And quickly learned that wasn't for me, so I left that field and was trying to figure out what I wanted to do. And I had friends at that time in medical school. They were like, you should go to med school. You'll do good. And I didn't want to commit myself to another. At that time, it was like another 7 years plus whatever years of residency. So we ended up, and I had a friend whose mom was a nurse, and I was also working for my dad, who owned a taxi company, and I ended up driving a travel nurse from the airport to about an hour and a half away from where the airport was, so to a hospital there. So in that hour and a half, I ended up learning a lot about nursing and travel nursing
Oh wow.
and all those things, and that was, God, in 2003, I think. Yeah, '03, uh, '02, '03, somewhere around that. So and and she also said, like, go into nursing, if you go to med school afterwards, you'll have a much better bedside manner, and you'll have a
Yeah.
better understanding of healthcare and how to better be a better doctor. And it made sense. So went to nursing school, got my RN, and started working. And at the time, I had a family friend whose mom fell and broke her arm, and she was in rehab. And at that time, she was there for a few months, and she really wanted to go home. But the rehab facility said it's going to take at least another uh, 6 to 9 months, or even longer, for her to like rehab fully, and she can go home. And she was just really miserable. She didn't want to stay there any longer.
Mm.
So her son reached out to me and said, "Hey, you're a nurse. Can you please help me get mom home sooner?" So I was working with her daily, like twice a day, uh, going in and doing rehab with her. She was in a rehab facility, with nursing home rehab, and every time I went in, I was like helping the people because they were all like short staffed, and also she needed, my goal was to go home. So within a month, we were able to get her back home, and when she went home, uh, her son still wanted me to assist her in the home, here, in her home. So we ended up, ended up starting a company to assist people in their homes and also the facilities.
Oh.
So when TLC was born, and TLC was named TLC Nursing by Sally, our first client that I took care of. So
Oh my
TLC Nursing
gosh.
was a name that was anointed by Sally, who was our first client and also the person that was helped me see the need in our community. So started out as just a one-man operation, me doing everything, including providing care, being a nurse, doing all
Wow.
the work. I started out in a office that was like no bigger than 100 square foot. It was tiny, tiny office space. Just needed a professional office space for a business, right? Because at that time, people didn't take you seriously if your business was out of the home. So
Yeah.
that's all I could afford at that time. So we saw it started out slowly. We ended up adding, little by little, one, two, three, four. Caregivers and nurses and CNAs, and then we grew from there. It started out with me doing everything, including the staffing side. So for the,
Wow.
for the first, God, until like 2011, 2012, I was still doing a lot of the nursing, the staffing side. So if there are facility needs, it was me that went out with other nurses. So we had a roster at the time in 2010, like 75 to 80 nurses. I was working side by side with them, and so I really understand what it takes to be on the floor and providing the care and having to deal with all the other stuff that goes along with it. So, when the company was built, really made sure that it's nursing focused and nursing centered. And it's not about the bottom line, it's about how best we provide the best care possible. That's
Mm.
what our uh, founding principle is on how to deliver the best care possible. And one of the things that was unique about us was pre-pandemic, we were really focused on providing services in New England. So we weren't well known nationwide because our focus was just laser focused in New England, Vermont, New Hampshire, Massachusetts, Rhode Island, and parts of Quebec. But the pandemic hit, and we had to decide to either we have to compete with the big boys or we cannot be in this business anymore. So we had to evolve and grow. And, over the pandemic, we grew rapidly. Right now, we have over 100 internal staff, recruiters, compliance
Oh my gosh.
folks,
Wow.
payroll people, and we have offices in Vermont, in South Burlington, Vermont, Omaha, Nebraska, which is like the mecca for travel staffing companies. If people don't know that, uh,
Absolutely.
most of the big staffing companies are out of Omaha, Nebraska. And then we also have a team in Manila, Philippines that do back end work for us.
That's amazing. Oh my gosh. Well, congratulations on
Thank you.
such an incredible like entrepreneurial journey. I think it's so amazing that for a while like you were still like doing the nursing care, like you experienced that on the front line as you were building your business, and I'm sure that's impacted kind of how you've built the business and the values you've had when like hiring healthcare workers and working with healthcare workers. So would love to know from you, like, how do you feel that your background as a nurse has played a role in now your role as founder CEO of a healthcare staffing agency?
Again, it's going back to the basic principle. Like, why did I go into nursing? It's to care for people, right? I want to make sure that whatever we do, we're able to provide the best care possible. So that goes down to the clinicians, the nurses that are on the floor and doing providing the care that needs to be provided. So that includes, we assist our nurses from everything from like finding the best housing or like providing them housing that's close to the facility, to provide rental vehicles when they so that they can just fly up, do the work, not have to worry about traveling in 48 hours or whatever it may be to the facility, and also really understanding that at the end of the day, we want to make sure that they are taken care of because if our nurse is taken care of, I know that they will provide the best care possible because they want. That's why most people go into nursing is to deal with the care for
Yeah. I love that. And you obviously understand that better than anyone as a nurse yourself, which
exactly.
I think, as a nurse, as a healthcare worker, when deciding kind of what healthcare agency to work with, what employer to work with, I feel like having that trust and knowing that the agency was actually founded by a nurse, I think it really makes you just feel more comfortable because I think the values actually feel, more real than just like words on a website.
Exactly.
Um,
One of the things, I tell people is like, our mission is to cultivate meaningful relationships.
I was just literally going to ask about that. It's like highlighted very distinctly on your website, which I
Yeah.
loved.
And one of the things that I emphasize to my team day in and day out is, we are the cultivators. So our industry, more or less is called the headhunting business, right? Staffing agencies are the headhunters where they go out, find someone and put them in place and boom, they're done and then they go on to another one. we're very different. Where we're the farmers, we're not hunters. We want to plant that
Mm,
seed, cultivate that seed, nourish that seed, so that it's going to be with us for a long term. We just are not,
mm,
we're not focused on feeding a few people for 2 or 3 days. We're focused on feeding the entire village for months on end. So it's a very different approach to how we set the tone and how we set the relationship. And one of the things that I'm proud of is people internally and our travelers, our internal staff. They've been with us for and retired with us. So we've been in business for 18 years. I've had
wow.
4 or 5 people retire in 18 years, and also people that have been with us, or end up staying with us for a long term. Our external staff or clinicians, I've had, God, multiple clinicians retire from nursing from here, and we've
Wow.
multiple internal staff move on to doing their own business of some sort, because that was their passion. One of the things that I always tell nurses, I'm still the clinical officer, so if there's clinical issues and things like that, it's not human resources related, and if it's very clinical, it comes to me.
Wow.
I, one of the questions I always ask the clinician is, like, are you happy in what you're doing? Right? At the end of the day,
Mm,
you have to be happy and content with what you're doing and where you are. Otherwise, it's just, life is too short. You know, to be content
yeah.
with what you're doing.
I think that's such a great message. And I feel like especially in like the current landscape of being a healthcare worker, it sometimes can be hard to feel happy because, we're dealing with a lot of burnout. We're dealing with short staffing and, just a lot of pressure and stress just going on globally too. Like I think not just even in healthcare, just in the world. So I think that is
I,
really
I,
powerful. That's something you ask.
I'm glad you brought that up, because I have, one of my best friends from nursing school. He left nursing because he just couldn't deal with the pressures and the added
Yeah.
responsibilities. I know another nurse, a friend of mine that I went to school with. She ended up leaving nursing recently because she had been in ER for like 20 years, and she just was like, I'm done, because now we're just
Yeah.
getting assaulted every day, and I just can't
Yeah.
deal with it anymore. And that's just, people that I personally know really well, and I'm sure this is an issue that's we talk about all the time in conferences, but you know we still have a lot of work to do in fixing that.
I 100% agree with that. I think, there's always a lot of posts on LinkedIn and everywhere about the problems. And I think, yeah, we still have a long ways to go. And I think for me personally, like something that I really believe as a nurse myself is the importance of building relationships and the importance of just feeling recognized and like valued. And I think that's something that you've spoken to with just how you approach your clinicians and asking them, are they happy and how are they feeling? Because I feel like sometimes, especially in healthcare staffing, it can sometimes feel a bit transactional. Like, as you mentioned, it's like the headhunting business, right? So I just think that it's really powerful that you have this mission around cultivating relationships, because ultimately I think that's actually one of the key solutions to a lot of the challenges. Now, obviously, it's not going to solve everything. Like, workplace violence is, obviously like its own issue in itself. But I think, if we can kind of get through this together by cultivating those relationships and building trust and like relate, like rapport, and it just goes such a long way. So how have you seen that kind of make an impact at TLC throughout the time you've been in business?
So one of the things I learned early on is, like, we as nurses are not always given all the tools that are needed. When you're
Yes.
taking care of patients, you have to have multiple tools, not like, your stethoscopes or like physical tools, but also like skill set. So
Yeah.
I'm a firm believer in providing as many tools as possible to our clinicians. So that includes, like, one of the trainings that we do in house. If the clinicians are working in the New England area and they're working in acute care settings, or uh, uh, in a setting where there's a lot of violence, like the health workers, people who are in psych wards or ER, we provide additional training like PROACT, MOAB, PAC, which
Wow.
practice like professional assault crisis training. MOAB
Mm.
is management of aggressive behavior. PAC is positive approach to care, so that people, if they have dementia or Alzheimer's or memory loss, how to properly care for them, giving them those tools,
Mm.
how to de-escalate, or how to protect yourself from assault. MOAB is all about skills that you can use day in and day out in a setting. So I became a certified trainer to train others, so that
Oh, wow.
more than just about me and TLC. We want to be able to like make sure that we share that skill set with everybody else.
That's so amazing. I love that. And yes, I would 100% agree. Like, I mean, personally, like, that's why I started my business, is because it was like that exact pain point of just like, I felt like healthcare workers, especially on the front line, just like lack tools and resources. And as you mentioned, it goes beyond the stethoscope. Although it's crazy that nurses have to buy our own gear, but that's a whole nother problem.
Yeah.
So I love that you pointed that out. I really resonate with that a lot. Um, just to kind of shift gears a little bit, one thing I'm also really curious to just kind of understand from your story is, the fact that you built this entire business with like a team of 100 people. Like, that is no joke. And anyone listening, like, that is so hard to do. Like, it's literally such an accomplishment. Congratulations.
Thank
But
you.
I'm really curious to know how you feel like your nursing background, we talked a lot about your nursing background impacting how you care for the clinicians you work with and in kind of informing the mission of your company and the values. But how do you feel like your nursing background actually informed kind of more of the business side? And maybe what skills do you feel like your nursing background kind of prepared you as an entrepreneur?
It did not.
Really?
That's the honest answer.
That's
And it
interesting.
took me 18 years, right? We've been, TLC was founded in '06, and we're in 2024, and it's been 18 years, and it's been work in progress. And I still say
Wow.
we're work in progress because, that we still have a lot of learning to do, and we still have a lot of growing to do. And it comes down to the people. Like, I've been blessed and lucky enough to surround myself with, people who are smarter than me, can work harder than me, and can be able to uh, uh, really deliver our mission outside outside these walls. So, we that's the key ingredient is making sure that you surround yourself with the right people,
Yeah.
and being able to count on them, and they being able to count on you. And
Yeah.
also, one of the philosophies that I subscribe to is servant leadership, which is, being able to get down and do what needs to be done, regardless of
Yeah.
whatever the task may be. One of the things I tell my team is like, if I see the bathroom is broken and needs to be fixed, I'm going to fix it. It's not about, it's not my job. I'm not going to be doing it. It just doesn't work like that.
But that's the nurse in you
That's the
too,
nurse.
right? Like, I think I would push back and say
Yeah.
not nothing, because that's the nurse right there, servant leadership. And also your empathy to even have that ability to talk to your team in that way, I think is also a nursing skill set. And just being able to like build the team and be in that team environment. I think that is, I think something you learn is a nurse too. It's just how to work with different stakeholders and dealing with a lot of different types of, the family, the patient, the physician, the CNA, the hospital administrator. I mean, there's a lot of different stakeholders in that environment. And I think I felt that as an entrepreneur as well, where it's like, you obviously need to kind of rally the troops and you can't do everything. But you also are just kind of dealing with a lot of different, stakeholders, and each person has maybe different lingo. An engineer has this type of way of speaking, where maybe a business person has this kind of
Right.
thought process. So, yeah, I love that, and that's a great kind of leadership mentality to go by. Just a few more questions I'm curious to kind of get your thoughts on. As someone who has been in the space for so long, first off, I'm just amazed by like the grit and resilience you've had to build this for 18 years. Like, I think that is such a testament to your resilience and grit, because again, very hard. I mean, I've been building my business for 3 years, and I feel like I've been doing it for 30 years. So if I make it to year 18, it's going to be amazing. So congratulations.
Yeah.
But I'm just curious, like in your perspective, I feel like the healthcare staffing industry has obviously evolved so much, like throughout the pandemic and now post-pandemic, it's like shifting back in a way. And I think a lot of travelers I talk to, kind of going into the industry expecting these high-paying contracts that we're thinking we saw all those TikToks during the pandemic of people making all this money. And now there's this new wave of travelers coming into the industry and they're getting into these contracts and they're not as lucrative as maybe they were a few years ago. So I'm curious to hear from you as an expert and also a nurse. Can you just provide like a little bit of behind the scenes for us of like what's going on and like is this just like the new normal or how do you kind of see it evolving in the next year or two?
Absolutely. And I can give you like some concrete examples as well, in the back end of it as well. So, one of the things that happened during the pandemic is you had a lot of players that are not, uh, they are staffing agencies previously that did IT staffing or, did other kind of staffing, and all of a sudden saw that there's this huge boom in the healthcare staffing side, especially on the travel nursing. They all jumped in. And
Yeah.
their ultimate, and also new businesses popped up. And the ultimate uh, goal, when you talk to the leadership team there, is that how do we grow this so fast, and bring the revenue up so that we can sell in 2 years or 5 years and make, 3x of the revenue or 5x of the revenue. That's their
Right.
ultimate, you know, uh, and that may work for them, but for me, that doesn't jive well with me. For me, we're in the business of caring for people. Like, yes, we're a staffing company, but at the end of the day, we're in healthcare and we're taking care of people. And it's not about the profit dollar. It's about, for me, it's about us being here 100 years from now, the company being here 100 years from now, and being able to provide the care that people need. But when it comes to the industry is evolving. What we're seeing with a lot of agencies is a lot of agencies are cutting down on their recruiters and their internal staff just because of the margins aren't there anymore. So at the end of the
Yeah.
day, it just all comes down to a pot of money. Like each contract gets assigned X number of dollars. I'll keep it easy and round figures, right? So let's say an RN contract in a hospital for med surge, you're doing 13 weeks, and the contract overall uh, bill rate will equal to $10,000. That's how much the agency gets, and the agency, a good agency, would give you up to 80 to 85% of it. So you make 8,500, the agency makes 1,500 at the end of the day. And the
Mhm.
agency has overheads, they pay contractors, pay the people, and all those things. So that's how they can operate.
Right.
What happened during the pandemic is that that pot grew rapidly to it went from 10,000 to all of a sudden it went to 40,000, right? So with that rapid growth, like all the bill rates were 3 to 4x. We saw some agencies were only giving the nurses like 30, 40, 50% of that bill rate. So, and some agencies like ours, we were consistent. We had nurses during the pandemic that were working for us. They were making like $10,000 a week. We had people like
Wow.
calling us and complaining in 2003, saying, "You sent me a wrong W-2. I did not make." We had like a couple of people out there were like, "I was only with you guys for 6 weeks. I did not make $60,000." We
Wow.
went through and like showed them exactly how they did it. They also worked overtime. Like, it wasn't like a 40 hours. It was more like 56-hour contract. And we showed them that, and they were like shocked that they made that money. But those days are over, right?
Right.
Unless there's another pandemic happening, and or the government all of a sudden saying the federal government is going to, give all the healthcare facilities more money to provide care, that's not coming back. What we're seeing today is that it's going back to pre-pandemic levels. So the rates are going back to where they were before the pandemic. But the challenge with that is that it's also not keeping up with inflation. So that's where the nurses are seeing the challenge, is that, I'm getting paid. Most of the contracts these days are anywhere from 2,300 to, or 2,000 to 3,000 max.
Yeah, yeah.
And the nurses that we talk to, their biggest challenges, the pay package in theory sounds great, but I still have to maintain my home back home, and my cost of
Right,
care is much higher. So
right.
this is not making sense. So it's a balancing act. We focus on making sure that we're able to deliver much of that bill rate to the to our clinicians as possible, and provide any other cost savings that we have to our clinicians as much as possible. And one of the things we also do with our recruiters is, we're an open book. So when if our nurses want to know, hey, what is the bill rate, so that I know what
Wow,
we're open about it. We tell them,
wow.
this is the bill rate. These are our costs. This is what we make, and then they understand. And we're not in it to, if you come see our office, we're not in it to see office. We're just try to keep the operations as minimal as possible, our operational expense, and be able to pay our nurses as much as possible. But
Wow.
industry-wide, what you'll see is happening is that the rates are coming down. When you talk to our clients, big hospital systems, they're really focused on cutting on their spend, and they're also really focused on having long-term people. They want to not just come in for 13 weeks. We have multiple facilities that we work with, people there for at least 6 months. They would just want someone
Interesting.
for 3 months and out. They want people that can be with them for long term. And also, a lot of facilities are really pushing hard to create their internal pool.
Yeah.
School systems in big cities are creating their internal pool. And that's also another great option for clinicians if they want to stay home, stay local. The pay is higher, but you don't get the same benefits. So, there's always a give and take. If you're working at a hospital directly, you get some really good benefits, but the pay is not the greatest.
Right.
Or the other way around, where you can have high pay but not not great benefits.
Right. So fascinating. Thank you so much for sharing that. It's always kind of amazed me, especially now that I've gotten into the space on like the business side, is kind of just the volatility of the market, and I think how quickly things evolve and shift. So I really appreciate you being transparent and kind of sharing that for healthcare workers to just kind of better understand how it works, even from like the business side of like how, healthcare staffing agencies make money and how they also run their own business. It's really really fascinating, and I think it's super admirable that you guys share the bill rates and have that transparency at TLC, because again, I think that comes back to your mission of cultivating relationships, building that rapport and that trust. And it also comes back to having a nurse founder too, which is so inspiring. So that is so amazing. Would love to wrap on kind of this question we always ask on the podcast, which I think is kind of a theme we've been talking about a lot throughout the past 30 minutes, which is basically just about like rehumanizing healthcare staffing and just kind of keeping that human factor a part of the process. And I think this goes beyond just like travel nurse agencies. I think it goes into hospitals and every part of healthcare, because at the end of the day, you've said it multiple times, we're caring for people. That's why we're all here, is to provide the best care to our patients and to just get through this together. So I'm curious to hear from you. Why do you believe personally that, why is rehumanizing healthcare maybe even more important now than ever before?
Uh, because that's what it's made of, right? The healthcare system is about dealing with humans and providing, the human touch. And one of the things that we lost, uh, metaphorically, during and physically too, is that human touch sort of disappeared during the pandemic with the PPEs and all the things that nurses had to do to protect ourselves from our other patients. That human touch sort of went away, and that pretty much affected everybody, not just healthcare, but it's across the board. If you go to
Yeah.
a, 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 a coffee shop and order coffee, the kind of service that you were getting pre-pandemic to kind of service you're getting post-pandemic is very different. So uh, it's almost like it's a cultural shift. We have to bring that back culturally, and having respect for one another as human beings, and being able to really think about others. So culturally, meaning like society-wide. But
Yeah.
healthcare, it's also bringing back the teamwork and the team mentality. One of the things that, when we have we sometimes onboard, 30, 40 mental health clinicians or nurses and mental health clinicians to facilities. And one of the things that I always make sure I tell them is, at the end of the day, you're part of this team. You might be an MHC, you might be a CNA, you might be an RN, you might be working with a neurosurgeon. At the end of the day, you all are part of a piece of the puzzle. Without one of you, the puzzle is not going to be together. So how do we bring that puzzle together, put it together, and make sure that it sticks together? That's the ethos that we're missing right now.
100%. Yes. We're all a team at the end of the day. We're all just trying to get through it, do our best, and again, provide the human care to humans. And we're all humans here at the end of the day, too. I think sometimes our identities as healthcare workers, it can sometimes just lose that human element because it's just so like, I don't know. It's important to remember we're humans first at the end of the day.
And majority of the people that go into this field, vast majority of the people go into this field because they want to care for people.
Yeah.
That's the guiding principle that brings people into this field.
Absolutely.
Is they want to be able to care for people. They don't want to be, in front of a computer. They don't want like that. That was me. Like I did an internship out of high school, and I was like, I don't want to be in front of the computer. I want to be in front of people. I want to be able to interact with people. I'm missing that, and that's why a lot of people go into our field, and we need to be able to acknowledge that, and sometimes just remind everyone that hey, we're in it together. We're in it to care for people. Let's work together.
I love that. Well, Mohamed, thank you so much for sharing all of this wisdom. I'm so inspired by your story. I know everyone listening is going to be so excited to even be able to learn more about TLC. So if you could just share, where can people go to find out about TLC nursing and just learn more if they're interested?
Sure. Go to our website, tlcnursing.com, and you'll find all the openings we have, and also you can get hold of us, and also reach out to me if you have questions. My email, it's simple, Mohamed, Mohamed, at tlcnursing.com. And that's one of the unique things too, is that every one of our travelers get an email introduction, and the email introduction has my email address and my phone number. So
wow,
I want to be able to, if they're not satisfied with the solutions that they're getting or the answers that they're getting, they have my direct line that they can reach out to.
Wow. Good for you, Mohamed. I'm so excited. I'm all in on TLC. I love it. Such an inspiring story. Everyone go check it out. And my favorite part of your website, as soon as you go to tlcnursing.com, it says for nurses, by nurses, owned and operated by a nurse, which is so incredible. So thank you so much for sharing your story with us. And thanks for listening, everyone.
Thank you so much.
Bye.